Thank you very much. Please give another round of applause for our heads of film, Arne and Johan. Most distinguished executive board, fellow student officer and executive team, dear MUN directors, guests, staff, dear delegates, dear all. My name is Konstantin Tietz, and I feel extremely honored to welcome you all to the 26th session of the Model United Nations of Lübeck as this year's President of the General Assembly. As every year, it was very special witnessing all the enthusiasm and efforts that went into MUNOL's preparation. I can already feel the MUNOL spirit taking over, and I'm absolutely certain that this upcoming week will be yet again an unforgettable and rich experience for all of us. We will now be listening to a series of speeches delivered by very hard-working organizers and supporters of MUNOL 2023. Without whom this conference would not have been possible. One person in particular allowed us to hold the conference on school grounds and once again showed his trust in this year's executive board by granting them access to all kinds of equipment. Please welcome the headmaster of the Thomas Mann School. Mr. Rother, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Mr. President, dear Executive Board, delegates, students, and teachers. Thank you for your invitation to this opening ceremony of the 26th Model United Nations of Lübeck, proudly hosted by the Thomas Mann School. A big thank you to everyone involved in organizing this event, especially the Executive Board, with Sophia, Lennart, Nike, Luise, and Magnus. And another special thank you to Mrs. Petzold and Mrs. Hohenfeld, sitting here in the front, assisting in the backyard. MUNOL has come back again after difficult times. Around 550 participants, including 300 guests from 10 nations. So many people, they're not even fit into this hall. But we need all of you, everybody, because MUNOL 2023 is focusing on the main topic of our planet's future, sustainability. Sustainability means to satisfy today's needs without restricting tomorrow's possibilities. This keyword opens a wide field, especially if you're thinking globally. That's why this topic needs you all. There's a reason why the United Nations declared 70 sustainable goals in 2015 and not only 2 or 3. If you want to structure these goals, you will end up in 3 categories: ecological goals, social goals, and economical goals. And you can't just think in one direction. You need to think them together with human needs and characteristics in the center. Please allow me to illustrate this by using a personal example. I'm currently involved into solar energy by using photovoltaic in my second home country, South Africa. Together with friends and companies, we are busy building small systems onto roofs of single houses. Similar systems are popular in Europe, especially in Germany, because you make some money by feeding electricity into the grid and you are reducing carbon emission in one step. The system is sponsored by the state using taxpayers' money. In South Africa, the situation is different. Yes, from the physical side, it's a perfect place for using solar energy. Sun nearly every day, and the angle of sunlight gives you a much better electricity outcome. But the people there, they do have other problems. The need for electricity is growing every day, but in this part of the world, they don't have even enough reliable power stations to satisfy this need. Building up power stations takes decades and a lot of money. So this ends up what the people there are calling load shedding. This basically means the electricity provider shuts down the electricity in some areas. No power, no light, no internet, no cooking. These days, up to 4 hours and 3 times a day. They do have a special system to make sure every area is affected in the same way. I do have an app on my phone telling me when my area is affected. I had a look before. It's today between 12 o'clock and 3 p.m. This also means if you rely on electricity at this time, no work, no income during load shedding. If you are a student, as you are, no internet, no light when it's dark, no learning. For you, having an excuse not to learn, a situation like this probably sounds good. But for a student fighting her way or his way out of poverty, this is a problem. So, becoming independent from the electricity grid by using photovoltaic seems to be a solution. But here, the problem just begins. Electricity needs to be cheap to be affordable for the poor. Solar energy is expensive. And there's not enough taxpayers' money income to sponsor solar energy there. A single system costs you 10,000 euros upwards. So, rich people can afford to get rid of load shedding. And they can afford to reduce carbon emission. But the majority of the country living in poverty, they can't. Reducing carbon emission by using solar energy simply opens the gap between rich and poor. We have to have this in mind. Rich students are able to learn when they want to. The poor students are only able to learn a few hours after school when they're lucky. As a result of this, the only solution to reduce carbon emission and to reduce social inequalities is to increase the prosperity of the whole society, to stimulate the economy. And it's not to distribute the wealth more equal in society, because there is simply not enough. This is an example why the United Nations declared 17 sustainable goals, because you need to think them all together. People in so-called Western countries often ignore this, living in their wealthy bubbles. Even in Lübeck, they do so. Yesterday, we heard from our mayor of Lübeck's goal to become climate neutral in 2040. But in the same context, politicians in this city are discussing to reduce people's individual mobility, which is the base of our economy. I'm happy and I'm proud that you, my students, that you are taking a look at the whole picture until Saturday, thinking globally, thinking integrated, that you are obviously not thinking that Germany needs to go ahead and the rest of the world just needs to follow to save the planet. Because Germany, because Europe are not the center of the world. And the future of our planet will be decided globally. I wish that you are not looking backwards, deciding what we did achieve and what we didn't in the past. I wish that you are looking in our future. And I'm hoping for a few ideas as small steps on our way to a sustainable future. Thank you very much for your attention. I yield the floor back to the President.
Herr Rother. Thank you very, very much for your speech. We all know that MUNOL isn't just about debates, but about much more. One of MUNOL's most important aspects is meeting new people from other countries, exchanging our cultures, and learning from each other. Our city, Lübeck, might just be the perfect fit for these activities, since its history and culture continue to inspire tourists, visitors, but also its citizens of all ages. I would like to welcome a very special guest, our city's appointee for school and sports, Dr. Hans Joachim Friedemann. You have the floor.
Mr. President, dear guests, a warm welcome to young people from all over the world in Germany and in the traditional Hanseatic city of Lübeck. MUNOL 2023 is now being held for the 26th time. This makes MUNOL one of the simulation games locations with the oldest tradition in Germany. This is also an outstanding unique selling point for the venue, our Thomas Mann School, and an enormous enrichment for the Lübeck school landscape. Several hundred students from many nations are visiting and enriching our Hanseatic city these days. Many of these young people are accommodated in Lübeck with host families. Many thanks to these families. The situation in the host family offers a special opportunity for exchange and getting to know the culture of our city, our country, our customs. The organizational preparation for MUNOL always takes almost a year while the school is running. My special thanks therefore goes to the entire team of the organization, head, chairs and staff for their cooperation with the registrations, the financial operations, the accommodation and meals, the secretarial work and public relations. There is so much to do behind the scenes everywhere. In the form of the 70 SDGs, the United Nations has, as is well known, decided on the most ambitious and largest project in its history, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is intended to enable and secure life on Earth for future generations. A balance sheet will be drawn up in 7 years. A topic of this year's conference already focuses on the few years that still remain. Sustainable development, on the way to the goal? Of course, I relate the topic to the challenges of the Hanseatic city of Lübeck, the decisions that we in politics and urban society have already made in this direction, and the necessary steps that we still have to take. Climate protection has a good tradition in Lübeck. In 2019, a climate emergency was declared in the city and the Climate Control Center was founded. It is currently, as our major said, up to the citizenship to decide on the climate master plan for all areas of the Hanseatic city. Our digitization strategy will also help us in this. We are on the way to becoming a smart city. A smart city is an intelligently networked city that puts the needs of people first, but brings them into harmony with nature and the environment. A smart city is both technologically advanced, efficient, and competitive. However, it acts in a resource-saving, nature-oriented, and social manner. The global sustainability goals of the 2030 Agenda can only be achieved where there are equal living conditions. All decisions made in the city must already follow the target of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. We are currently in the process of installing high-performance photovoltaic system on 17 roofs of school buildings. A high school has decided with the entire school community to be climate neutral as early as 2030. We have established a network meeting among the schools. The participants meet 3 times a year and exchange ideas and options for action regarding the goals of the agenda in everyday school life. We don't know whether all this will be enough, whether it can be done in time, but we know what doesn't help. If everyone waits for the other, then nothing or too little happens. We cannot be abstract for the protection of the climate and at the same time against every concrete protective measure or change that we are confronted with and that calls our habits into question. As a city, we are called upon to learn about sustainability. Our commitment as a city must show the citizens options as to how sustainable action can be made more possible through their own behavior in everyday life. I wish you a successful conference and an unforgettable time on the diplomatic stage. In the next 5 days, you will definitely take the opportunity to exchange ideas, get to know each other, and also make lasting friendships. This is also a helpful principle on the way to a functioning diplomacy, human interaction. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak. And now I yield the floor back to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you very much for your speech and for elaborating on our conference theme. For me and many others in this room, MUNOL 2023 will be our last conference as we graduate high school this year. Looking back at all the amazing experience we had, it might hurt to let such an essential part of our youth go. The more we commit to MUNOL of our own time and efforts, the stronger we feel like we become part of MUNOL, and MUNOL feels like it becomes part of us. Fortunately, there are still ways to help organize and visit future MUNOL conferences, and most importantly, stay in touch. While MUNOL is mostly organized by TMS students, these students can always rely on our MUNOL association, which consists of over 120 former MUNOL participants. Please welcome Leonard Römer, the chairperson of our MUNOL association.
Mr. President, dear organizing team, teachers, guests, and a most warm welcome to you, dear delegates. Let me start with a short anecdote. At 9 a.m., when you were watching the trailer in this very room, I was at the wrong location. I was at the MUK in Lübeck, which is about 3 kilometers away from here. And as I didn't have a yacht or a big car like our honorable president, I had to run. And just like I had to run, it has been a run for all of us to get here. For all of us, it was connected to difficulties, to complications, and to work to get here. And by that very occasion, I want to greet our friends in Ghana, who booked their flights, prepared in detail on sustainable development, and were in contact with us, and then they were refused a visa. They weren't allowed to come here because of their home country. So let's face it, with all the work, all our privileges, all our will, we could do so many other things at this very time. Why are we here? 5 years ago, I was one of you. I was standing at this very place in the muck, a bit scared, just like today, and delivered my opening speech. You might be wondering why now, 5 years later, with long grown hair, I am still here. This is how I began my speech in 2018. I opened it with a big quote. I said, "Beyond right and wrong, there is a place where we shall meet," and I meant MUNOL. It is a big quote, and it is exemplary for the big ideas we had with MUNOL in the past 25 years, to unite the world, to have a real impact on our future. Since 2018, 5 years have passed. And I think it is fair to say that these 5 years were among the most challenging and changing in all of our lives. I continued my speech by pointing out that in the past, 500 years ago, we had big wars in Europe, as we still had wars in 2018. That 500 years ago, we had huge pandemics like the plague, as we still had diseases in 2018. And I posed the question, why does nothing ever change? This was my question 5 years ago. It was my question before Russia's attack on Ukraine. It was my question before the COVID pandemic. And now, 5 years later, we all as young people may ask ourselves the question, does everything just get worse? Does all our work, all our big words in 25 years of MUNOL pay off at all? And what does MUNOL truly change? Model United Nations of Lübeck is a simulation. We only pretend to solve problems. The resolutions you will discuss will not have any direct political impact. Neither will they end Russia's war, nor will they better the accelerating climate crisis. But MUNOL actually can change one thing: ourselves. It changes our way of thinking and acting towards the world. It improves our awareness of serious problems, and that the only way to deal with them is with understanding, friendship, and confidence. And we can take on these ideas, we can take them into schools, to the streets, and in political processes. We, only us, can make this education this week sustainable. And by that together, we move towards the goal of sustainable development. MUNOL itself may not change any politics, but it changes people. This is the limit and the power of the Model United Nations of Lübeck. So let's keep in mind that the most valuable thing we have are our thoughts and our mindset and our attitude towards the world we live in. And that this conference does not only give the possibility to create friendships and have a lot of fun, which we definitely will, but it also provides us the possibility to change ourselves and transform our mindset. And sooner or later, we have to acknowledge that life and politics are nothing but a constant flow of changes. And that's why I encourage you. Use the week to debate and exchange opinions, to socialize and have fun, and most importantly, be open to being changed. Because this is why, at 22 years old, I am still here. MUNOL is an event that changed my life. And in one way or another, it will also change you. And that's why I'm so thankful for all the time that the organizing team has spent on this conference during the last year. Now, as I yield the floor back to the President, please join me in giving the organizing team a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonard, for your inspiring speech. I would like to continue by congratulating our financial manager, Magnus, for his commitment and hard work. Finances rule every single aspect of our conference. due to Magnus' continuous motivation to bargain with external providers and convince our sponsors of the importance of MUNOL, this conference can not only take place, but be quite accessible to its participants at the same time. Magnus, I yield the floor to you.
Most Honorable President of the General Assembly, most honored sponsors, fellow Executive Board, most distinguished student officers and executive team, esteemed delegates and MUN directors, hardworking executive staff, dear guests. I would like to welcome all of you to the opening ceremony of the 26th Conference of the Model United Nations of Lübeck. About this time last year, I decided to run for the position financial manager. In the last year, I worked hard for it, I sacrificed for it, and yes, I stressed for it. But sure, it was worth it. I have seamlessly integrated and have had a great experience organizing this year's conference along with these other lovely executive board members. I, as a financial manager, would like to put a special emphasis and acknowledgement to this year's sponsors without whom this conference would not have been possible. To name them, the Possehl Foundation Lübeck and the Gemeinnützige Sparkassenfoundation in Lübeck, the Träger Foundation and the Gemeinnützige Lübeck and Thomas Mann Schule Kulturmark have, and not for the first time either, been tremendous supporters of MUNOL. Let us not forget about the Kaufmann Foundation, the Edith Fröhnert Foundation, the Margot and Jürgen Wessel Foundation, and the Heidehof Foundation, whose financial support allows us to make this year's conference as outstanding and memorable as we can. We would also like to especially thank the Inge und Karl-Gerd Hille Foundation, Michael Haukohl Foundation, Helmut und Annemarie Wenneborn Foundation for sponsoring this event. Yet, of course, we deeply appreciate the support from the Inner Wheel Club Lübeck Holzentor and Jürgen Marwitz Youth Foundation, who regularly sponsors this MUNOL conference as well. Furthermore, one must not forget about the firms aiding us by offering their products. Schwartauer Werke and Niederegger are providing us with granola bars and marzipan, while the printing firm Menne has given us special offers. Now, while I'm pretty sure most of you, our staff, participants, and guests, are probably rather distant from most of those foundations and firms I have just named, please remember in mind that without them, we would not be able to make a grand conference to this extent, like hundreds of participants from Germany and all over the world, while keeping the costs of the conference fee as low as possible. Please give an applause to our sponsors and supporters. Now, before I want to end my speech, I would like to remind why exactly MUNOL is worth all the hard work, the sacrifice of hours and days, and especially sponsoring. Because all of the unique experience we, every single participant at this conference, can gain during this week through debates and resolutions, through all the old and new friendships we can make, and ultimately through how much we can learn from each other. I wish all of you an amazing week with outstanding debates, hard-earned results, and unforgettable friendships. I now give the floor back to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you, Magnus. Our conference is such a big event that we rely on an entire executive branch, our executive team, every year. Wi-Fi, lunch, snacks, photos, the aftermovie, host family, social media, or registration, all these things and many more define MUNOL as we know it and form the basis for its success. There are two people in this room who were responsible for coordinating that executive team, keeping in touch with schools, organizing all of our locations and almost every other part of our program. Please welcome one of our conference managers, Lennart Brunstein. The floor is yours.
Most Honorable President of the General Assembly, lovely Executive Board, Honorable Chairs, hardworking executives, dear MUNOL Association, dear Mr. Friedemann from Lübeck, and dear sponsors, and especially dear delegates. And welcome, dear MUN directors. 50% of you should know me, and 50% should know Sophia. We are the two people who performed with you the registration, wrote you that the deadline has lapsed or answered any questions, but all in all, we gave our best together with you, dear directors, that your students can be here today at the Model United Nations 2023. Thank you very much for your efforts. So let's give your MUN directors a round of applause for their organization. This year, we welcomed 29 schools from 10 different countries. Italy, England, Romania, Turkey, Egypt, Spain, Netherlands, Sweden, Poland, and schools from around Germany. For me, it is a big honor that I got the trust 1 year ago to be in this position as the conference manager. So, 360 days ago, Sophia and I started together work with the executive board, and we booked all the locations, ordered all materials, registered every school, as already the president said, and we also coordinate the executives and staffs, which is a great responsibility that we have carried and still carry. So, for this week, Sophia and I organized 3 evening events. Tonight, we will see each other at the Strand Salon in Lübeck with a great historic view of our city. And on Wednesday, tomorrow, we will be together at the Hanseatic Museum, so it will be a culture evening. And on Friday, we will meet everyone at the cargo boat for the MUNOL party. Also, we organized, as I said, a lot together with the executive team. They already supported us in many areas, and will do so during the week. You already have seen and will see many students engaged in many areas of organization. I mean, look around you. Many with cameras, or the PGA, or main trailer, or the Instagram and YouTube post, or yesterday the registration, or today the entry, or everyone who could host it worked with the housing team, not directly with us. So, 12 teams, 28 executives, and around 80 supporter staffs will make this conference possible with us. That's why I'm not standing just here on behalf of Sophia and myself. I'm standing here for 120 people from the organization team of the Thomas Mann School from the 8th to the 12th grade. So we try to have the conference as every year, the question arises, what do we want to keep in? What do we want to change for next MUNOL? So we also took this task to heart as the whole executive board. We not only try to debate about environmental issues, but also do something for it from the organization. So we try to have a conference as paperless as possible. We are more digital every year. We sell environment-friendly food as possible. Everyone who got yesterday a reusable cup, and there are glass bottles in every committee, and more and more. So before I yield the floor back to the President of the General Assembly, I want to thank some people. Even though it's the beginning of the conference, and in general you thank people at the end, it's for us that you're sitting here, and that you're sitting here, the result of our preparation. First, I want to thank my parents and friends that supported me in every conflict and stressful situation around the year. Also, a huge thank you for the MUNOL Association and, of course, the heads of approval, Mrs. Hohenfeld and Mrs. Petzold, who supported us and answered every question. And in the end, I also want to thank Sophia as the best team partner. So, on behalf of the organization team, we wish you a great experience in Lübeck and a fruitful debate. I yield the floor back to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you, Lennart. Lastly, our Secretaries General, Luis and Nika, took care of MUNOL's debates, organizing our issues on the agenda, our forums, our student officer team, guest speakers, basically working hard every day to keep MUNOL's content as qualitative as possible. Nika, the floor is yours.
Highly Honorable President of the General Assembly, fellow members of the Executive Board, esteemed student officers and executives, honorable delegates, dear MUN directors and guests, hardworking staffs. A well-written speech is like a good conference theme. It should reach everyone. When we accepted the challenge of setting this MUNOL's agenda, we took inspiration from another agenda, the Agenda 2030 or the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. When the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, Rio +20, was held in 2012, 3 more years were left until 2015, the expiration year of the Millennium Development Goals. Those years were filled by intense debates setting the Sustainable Development Goals until they were finally adopted by all UN member states in 2015. 17 goals calling for action by each and every country. As we spend more time trying to get behind the meaning of sustainable development and the SDGs, and also defining what it means for us, we wrote the conference text. We realized, hearing of sustainability, most people think of the environment and climate change, avoiding single-use products, but behind the term sustainability hides a lot more. Sustainable is what keeps a purpose. Sustainable education will last one a lifetime and let others benefit. Sustainable agriculture ensures intact land and its usability. Sustainable energy is renewable and not just gone at some point. The SDGs impact everyone, as some are already experiencing the advantages of sustainable development, while others experience every day how dramatic the current situation is. The SDGs sound great, but also like an utopia, living in a world without hunger and poverty, but with equal opportunities and education for everyone seems unlikely. So just setting sustainable development as a conference theme is not acknowledging the complexity of the topic. While some of the goals have long been reached in developed countries, more than 100 million people are forcibly displaced. More than 700 million people, or 10% of the world population, still live in extreme poverty, and around 1 million animal and plant species are threatened with extinction, many within decades. And instead of uniting to solve those more than urgent issues, countries are still fighting for their own benefit, thus creating artificial problems like wars. Therefore, this conference is not only about the goals. The goals set high expectations, but also highlight the necessity of change. We need to work towards the goals, but evaluate the progress and adapt the work at the same time. Instead of listening to different voices and benefiting from diverse society, minorities and oppositions still face oppression daily. We want to set an example and provide a platform for constructive formal debates and informal exchange among different nationalities. I now yield the floor to the most amazing Secretary General, Luis Bauer.
Your Excellency, Most Honorable President of the General Assembly, Honorable Executive Board, esteemed student officers and executive team, distinguished MUN directors, association and guests, most beloved delegates. It is my utmost pleasure and privilege to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you to Model United Nations of Lübeck. As we gather here today, we embark on a remarkable journey of diplomacy, collaboration and global engagement. In the spirit of United Nations, MUNOL aims to cultivate a culture of dialogue, mutual respect, and understanding. Over the course of the next days, you will have the opportunity to assume the roles of diplomats, representing nations, and working towards consensus and complex global challenges. You will have the chance to engage in thought-provoking debates, negotiate resolutions, and experience firsthand intricate dynamics of international relations. As we embark on this MUNOL journey together, let us remember the words of former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. More than ever before in human history, we share a common destiny. We can master it only if we face it together. Let us face the challenges before us with the determination, compassion, and a commitment to fostering peace, justice, and sustainable development. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the organizing committee, my dear chairs, the dedicated staff, and the countless volunteers who have poured their hearts and souls into making this event reality. Your hard work, passion, and commitment are what have made MUNOL possible, and I extend my sincerest appreciation for invaluable contributions. Furthermore, I would like to thank you, Mr. Rota, for all the support in the past year. We know that we have a lot to deal with, but we know you have worked so hard to make every second of our work as easy as possible, especially since we spent most of our time at school working on the conference. To the delegates, you are the driving force behind this conference, and it is your engagement, dedication, and enthusiasm that will shape its success. I urge you to seize this opportunity to challenge yourself and to embrace the spirit of collaboration and diplomacy in your life. Mrs. Hohenfeld, Mrs. Petzold, the association, thank you for every second of you invested in this conference and us in the past year and probably also during the next few days. I hope by the end of this conference we will be really proud of what we've created. In the past years, I had the great opportunity to live the MUN spirit, especially when joining this conference as a Secretary General. I'm more than excited to finally show you what we've been working on in the past year and share the MUNOL spirit with you. Please enjoy every second of it. It is truly something extraordinary that I will cherish in my entire life. I hereby yield the floor back to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you very much. It is truly a pleasure to feel the increasing anticipation in this room as we are slowly approaching the official start of MUNOL. I am already looking forward to getting to know all of you at school and our evening activities, of course, to share that special feeling of community. With that being said, I believe it is now time for the long-desired moment. As the President of the General Assembly, I hereby declare the 26th session of Model United Nations of Lübeck as officially opened. Thank you. We will now be graced with an act of our school choir. Please give them a round of applause. Sorry for this. There seems to have been some kind of a difficulty, so the president stands corrected. We will just be continuing with the presentation. Then we will be moving on, and we will now be entertaining speeches by all delegations of this year's Security Council. As you will see, the delegates are listed in an alphabetical order and will approach the stage in groups of 5. Then those 5 will deliver their speeches after each other. This year, clapping will be in order after each individual speech. Also, the speeches shall not exceed the time limit of 2 minutes. Once you hear the gavel, 1 minute and 50 seconds have passed. Hearing the gavel twice will mean that your 2 minutes are over and your speech has to end. The first delegations to approach the floor are in that respective order: the Federative Republic of Brazil, the Gabonese Republic, Japan, the People's Republic of China, and the Republic of Albania.
Your Highest Excellency, the Secretaries General, most distinguished Executive Board, most honorable student officer and executive team, fellow delegates, distinguished guests, as the representative of Brazil in the Security Council, Brazil is here to address the conference theme, Sustainable Development, Moving Towards the Goal. Today, the UN stands united in our commitment to forge a sustainable future for our planet and its inhabitants. Sustainable development is not just a goal, it is an imperative. It requires the UN to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. To move towards sustainable development, the UN must prioritize international cooperation, inclusivity, innovation, and climate action. No nation can tackle these problems alone. By sharing knowledge, resources, and expertise, we can comprehensively address sustainable development. Inclusive and equitable development is paramount. The UN must reduce inequalities and ensure access to education, healthcare, and basic services for all. Empowering marginalized communities and enhancing their participation is key to building a sustainable society. Furthermore, the UN cannot ignore the urgent issue of climate change. Ambitious climate action is necessary. The world must reduce greenhouse gas emissions and transition to clean energy. In the Security Council, we will address 3 critical topics: finalizing terrorism in affected areas, focusing on Yemen, addressing the situation in Nigeria, and securing peace in regions affected by the so-called war on terror. Through regional cooperation, political solutions, and support for reconstruction, Brazil can promote peace, stability, and sustainable development. Together, let us seize this opportunity to forge a path towards a more sustainable future by prioritizing international cooperation, inclusivity, innovation, and climate action. We can move closer to the goal of sustainable development and ensure a prosperous world for generations to come. The Federative Republic of Brazil looks forward to fruitful debates. Thank you. I yield the floor back to the President.
The Gabonese Republic, you have the floor.
Most distinguished Executive Board, most honorable student officer and executive team, dear House. As commonly known, the term sustainability describes the equality of ecological, economical, and social aspects. But while those 3 factors gained their popularity within the last 50 years in industrialized nations, sustainability has already been part of African identity over the past millenniums. For example, we nowadays know our ancestors to celebrate the first harvest Thanksgiving by, of course, thanking for the food, but also by sensibilizing other people to take care of natural resources. Moreover, many traditional African cultures have acquired serene attitude towards topics like the often feared end of our own life. Individuals come and go after only a few decades have passed. But families and even more important, whole societies can exist for an unrevealed longer period of time. With that given, the establishment of the best possible living conditions for future generations has to be our first and foremost goal. Thanks to its, in comparison to other African countries, relatively high development, Gabon is able to act as an advisor regarding sustainability. This is based on the cognition that problems have to be solved politically, which made us, for instance, the only country that was able to absorb 105 million tons of CO2 net in 2020, in first place due to its environmental friendly and forest area neutral forestry. This is not negligible, but all in all a minor part of the world's sustainable transformation. Last's economical and social challenges can only be solved by a strong global community that thinks open-minded. A worldwide dialogue on an equal footing will be needed, as well as the consistency to pursue our values and ideas, also by short-term economic drawbacks that will save future generations financial and natural resources. Gabon is convinced by the fact that we will be able to stand the upcoming challenges. The Gabonese Republic is looking forward on a productive and hopefully historical conference. The delegate yields the floor back to the presidency.
Thank you very much. Japan, you have the floor.
Most honorable student and executive team, esteemed PGA, fellow delegates, honorable chairs. Two dominant trends shape terrorism in the 21st century, which is the overrepresentation in the Middle East and North Africa. Human security is the backbone of Japan's implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. As chair of the Security Council Working Group on Peacekeeping Operations, Japan has been providing humanitarian assistance to countries such as Yemen and Nigeria, as well as countries affected by the war on terror. Japan is committed to combating terrorism and urges the implementation of sanctions against terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda and Boko Haram, solving the problem of landmines or improvised explosive devices, and the deployment of security forces to affected areas. Japan suggests an investment in the infrastructure of affected countries to help improve the transportation system and create jobs to stimulate economic growth. Japan recommends investing in the development of renewable energy sources to help address affected countries' energy needs and contribute to combating climate change, as stated by Sustainable Development Goal number 7. As a member of the UN Security Council and the G7 presidency, Japan will continue to provide necessary assistance and make diplomatic efforts to realize sustainable peace. Thank you. I yield the floor back to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you very much. The President would like to remind all future speakers to refer to themselves in third-person singular or first-person plural, please. Thank you. We will now continue with the delegation of the People's Republic of China. You have the floor.
Esteemed PGA, most distinguished executive board, most honorable student officer and executive team, honorable chair, hardworking staff, and of course, friendly delegates. Dear House, humanity is an astonishing species. We have made incredible and rapid advances in human health, in transport, energy, food production, and infrastructure. But in our haste to adopt new technologies that made our lives better, we did not think about the long-term consequences. Now we're paying the price. Our high carbon and resource-intensive economic models are warming the planet. They are destroying nature and biodiversity, undermining the foundations of our existence. And they are increasing inequality, as those with least access to the benefits of human development are the ones who suffer most from these unwelcome side effects. Sustainability is much more than the right thing to do. It is also the safest and the smartest investment that we can make. Betting on low-carbon economy that gives back to nature more than it takes and reinforces our security is the most certain economic trend in the coming years and decades.
At present, the COVID-19 pandemic has reversed global development gains and impeded the implementation of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We uphold the harmony between human and nature and firmly promote green and low-carbon development. In particular, as I am the ambassador of the People's Republic of China, we plan to achieve carbon neutrality before 2060, incorporate carbon peaking and carbon neutrality goals into the overall layout of economic and social development and ecological civilization, and build the world's largest clean energy system. In the past decade, China has seen an average annual economic growth rate at 6.5%, with an average annual energy consumption growth rate at 3%. Only if we understand the fundamental importance of a peaceful coexistence with the natural environment and between human beings, only if we manage to put an end to the numerous conflicts, wars, destructions, hostilities in the whole world, then putting in place all our solidarity and cooperation, we will succeed to forge consensus and strengthen actions to jointly promote sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Could the delegate please yield the floor again, please?
To the PGA.
Thank you very much. We will now be continuing with the Republic of Albania.
Most distinguished executive board, fellow delegates, and dear guests. We gather at this conference this week to discuss the sustainable future development of mankind. In order to shape this goal, we jointly formulated 17 SDGs in 2015 that are to be achieved until 2030. Today, at the midway point of this path, it's time to take stock. Since the implementation of the SDGs, we must acknowledge some promising developments. The child mortality rate and the proportion of extreme poverty have been steadily declining. Breakthroughs have been made against diseases such as AIDS, and progress can also be seen in the area of gender equality. However, alongside these achievements, it is essential that we realize, according to available data, only 12% of the 140 goals are on track. 58% of the goals show insufficient progress, and a third show no positive or even negative progress. The last few years have been demonstrated that the common international goal and the progress were characterized by extreme fragility in the face of instability, the COVID-19 pandemic, and conflicts such as the Ukrainian war. Therefore, combating terrorism to guarantee global stability is a prerequisite for sustainable cooperation and a key issue in the Security Council. However, the Republic of Albania must express its deep concern that Russia, a state that has been declared a state sponsor of terrorism, can decisively limit our common ambitions in this area as a P5 nation. In this context, we welcome that Russia was expelled from the HRC in response to the aggression by the international community. All in all, despite all the existing crises, the participants in this conference must formulate a much more ambitious international, national, and local commitment in all necessary areas in order to assure sustainable development in compliance with our goals. We wish for a successful conference with constructive discourses. The Republic of Albania yields the floor back to the Presidency.
Thank you very much. The next delegations to approach the floor are, in that respective order, the Republic of Ecuador, the Republic of France, the Republic of Ghana, and the Republic of Malta, and additionally the Republic of Mozambique. Yes, the Republic of Ecuador, you have the floor.
Most Honorable Executive Board, Mr. President, distinguished chairs, fellow delegates, hardworking ad staff, and everyone else not yet mentioned. We are gathered here today to address the paramount issue of sustainable development. The Ecuadorian Security Council recognizes that sustainability is not a choice, but an urgent necessity. Today, our world faces interconnected challenges that threaten our planet's health and our collective future, such as terrorism in affected areas, especially Yemen, the current situation in Nigeria, all the regions affected by the so-called war on terror, but also general international issues such as climate change. All of these issues demand immediate action and global cooperation. Ecuador understands that security encompasses more than military concerns. It includes justice, equality, and environmental stability. By integrating sustainable development into our security frameworks, we can create a safer and more prosperous world. Therefore, we call upon all member states to honor their commitments under the Sustainable Development Goals. Let us work together to promote renewable energy, protect our natural resources, and ensure access to education, healthcare, and clean water for all. Through dialogue and collaboration, we can inspire innovative approaches and forge meaningful partnerships. Ecuador remains committed to multilateralism and urges you to join us in creating a sustainable and inclusive future. Thank you for your attention, and let us seize this opportunity to act decisively for the benefit of present as well as future generations. The floor is yielded back to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you. The Republic of France, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and distinguished guests. As a nation built on human rights and the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the French Republic is committed to the spirit of the UN. We stand before you today in full belief in the importance of cooperation and dialogue when it comes to finding solutions for the world's problems. This is especially true when it comes to sustainable development. 8 years ago, the nations of the UN came together and agreed on 17 ambitious but necessary goals for sustainable development. Today, we are halfway through the 15-year period of the 2030 Agenda. Therefore, the time is right to evaluate how nations have worked toward these objectives since 2015. The harsh truth is that we are nowhere near accomplishing the aims we set for ourselves. It's easy to promise sustainable development, but when push comes to shove, the nations of the world take the easy way out. It's easy to use coal and oil instead of renewable energy. It's easy to continue our unsustainable systems of production. It's easy for public officials to fill their own pockets instead of using the money to improve education. But as inequality continues, war rages around the world, and the climate crisis is worsening day by day. Now is the time for nations to work for actual change. This conference is an opportunity for all nations to achieve a better and more sustainable world through international discussion, and we hope all diplomats present seize this occasion. The French Republic looks forward to fruitful debates, working towards common solutions to the wide array of issues concerning sustainability. Thank you, and I yield the floor to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you. Republic of Ghana, please.
Esteemed PGA, most distinguished Executive Board, honorable chairs, fellow delegates, dear guests, and if present, lovely staff. During this 5-day conference, we will all be talking about sustainable development as it is this year's MUNOL theme. We would like to start the speech by reminding all the delegation present here that on September 25th, 2015, all the member states sat down at the Sustainability Summit to discuss the topic of sustainability around the world, as you all know by now. The outcome of the summit, all the member states agreed on 17 sustainability development goals, also known as SDGs, that had to be achieved by 2030. This is known worldwide as the 2030 Agenda. These goals are very utopistic, but the UN was very optimistic about these goals and how they could be achieved. we can take the fourth goal as an example of how utopistic it is, because the fourth goal talks about the need of quality education around the world. This goal, as you all know, unfortunately, is nowhere near being completed and done. And our country is a prime example of this, as Ghana does have a pretty good educational system placed and set in our country compared to many African nations. But however, the education system varies from school to school, and we do not have a continuous educational system. Only 87% of kids are enrolled, not 100%. And we look forward in this conference to tackle this issue and find compromises and solutions. A final example could be the one of the goal number 7, which states the following: the need of affordable and clean energy. This matter, as you all know, has been of great interest and relevance in the past few years. Many nations have approached this and implemented different ways to vary the energy industry, and also started to shut down non-renewable energy. Now, with the war started by now a year and a few months by Russia and Ukraine, many nations have gone to the carbon-fueled energy sources. Ghana in this is a very mixed country. We have non-renewable and renewable energy sources. During this conference, we will find compromises with all the member states to have a better life in the entire world and in Tatooine. Thank you all for your attention. The floor is yielded to the PGA.
Thank you. The Republic of Malta, please. Before you start, the President would like to remind all delegates to take their placard to the podium with them. No, it's fine for now. But please, all future delegates, do not forget your placards. You may start.
Apologies. Most distinguished Executive Board, most honorable student officer and executive team, dear House. In 1945, the United Nations as we know it was founded for a simple yet imperative purpose: to preserve the peace, safety, and freedom of every single man, woman, and child that occupy the planet Earth. Every meeting, statement, and resolution that is produced by the United Nations should be in pursuit of this noble ideal. In 2015, the United Nations adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. These goals call for sustainability in peace, security, economic development, education, and so much more. Since 2015, it pains the delegate of Malta to say that the world has not done enough to meet these goals by 2030. These goals may represent an impossible ideal, but the world's actions show an abhorrent lack of initiative. There are no fingers to point, but there's only shame to be felt. Since the goals have been adopted, not only has the world not inched towards peace, but large-scale war has come to Europe again since the very founding of this establishment. The world economy has suffered due to global pandemic. The people of Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, and so many other nations continue to be in tremendous danger. This week, the UN can inch closer to performing its noble duty through peaceful and fruitful negotiation. These are not issues for future generations. These are not issues for tomorrow. Action must be taken. It must be taken comprehensively. It must be taken swiftly. And it must be taken now. Thank you.
Thank you. Could the delegate please yield the floor officially? Okay.
Back to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you. We will now be continuing with the Republic of Mozambique.
Thank you, highly honorable Mr. PGA, Your Excellencies of the Executive Board, esteemed organizing team, student officers, staff, and guests, fellow delegates. This year's question, moving towards the goal, is as good as easily answered by naming one simple example. It was answered by each and every one of you, It was answered by most states, if not earlier, in 2020. Because in 2009, the leaders of developed countries promised to raise $100 billion for countries most suffering from the consequences of climate change, yet least causing it. $100 billion in development aid is probably not enough, considering most developed countries are developed due to a history of colonialism, but it's a good start. $100 billion is not a lot. Considered only half a Doppelwumms, the US, for example, spends 7 times that on military annually. However, 80 billion is what we got in 2020, and that includes private investment. The goal hasn't been met ever since. Are we moving towards the goals? Yes, clearly. Some countries are. Others are left with a choice to either wait for developing aid that does not seem to be coming, or create their own economy based on carbon dioxide like everyone else in the desperate try to fulfill the most basic needs of their citizens while fueling climate change until the SDGs become unreachable for everyone. Let's change this. Thank you. The floor is yielded.
Thank you. The next delegations to approach the floor are the Russian Federation, the Swiss Confederation, the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the United States of America.
Thanks for the recognition, esteemed presidency, distinguished secretariat, honorable chairs, fellow delegates, lovely members of the staff, press, dear guests, and everyone who made this conference possible. As a global leader, Russia remains resolute in its commitment to achieving the UN Sustainable Goals. In recent years, our country has demonstrated positive results in each SDG, the most successful of them being SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 4, quality education, and SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. However, achieving these targets of paramount importance still requires the implementation of joint efforts of the government, private sector, and society. Thereby, it should be highlighted that even during several global crises that we face today, like climate change and energy shortages, Russia is fully committed in achieving these goals, not only for our nation, but also for the betterment of the global community. Moreover, Russia is an active and responsible member of the international donor community. The concept of Russian Federation's state policy in the area of international development assistance, adopted in 2014, defines the main priorities and forms of Russia's assistance to partner countries. Since then, assistance to partner countries has amounted to more than $6 billion US. Thus, when the question, are we moving towards sustainability, arises, it is obvious that Russia's tremendous efforts are undeniable. Our country has shown overwhelming interest in making the world a better place, but unfortunately, Russia cannot attain this alone. Therefore, we are urging every member state to question themselves. Are they or are they not moving towards sustainability? Russia is besides each and every state which desires to do so. And we not only underline the significance of the SDG, but also we look forward to promoting our effective and decisive approach for ensuring a sustainable and prosperous future. Thank you. Russia yields the floor back to the President.
Thank you. The Swiss Confederation, please.
Your Highest Excellency, Secretaries General, Honorable President of the General Assembly, most distinguished Executive Board, dear House. The Swiss Confederation is thankful to be able to participate in this pioneering conference. We find ourselves at a critical juncture in history where the choices we make today will shape the future of our planet and generations to come. The challenges we face, from climate change to resource depletion, from poverty to hunger, from missing education to unstable infrastructure, require immediate action and global cooperation. We understand the significance of this responsibility and are determined to lead by example. As we have integrated sustainability into our very core, our cities are models of efficiency with cutting-edge infrastructure and innovative urban planning that promotes green living. But we also recognize that our efforts alone are not enough. Sustainable development requires a united front. Therefore, Switzerland is committed to fostering international partnerships, sharing knowledge and supporting initiatives that advance sustainable development worldwide. We believe that sustainable development is not merely an aspiration. It is a tangible goal we can achieve by investing in renewable energy, promoting circular economies, and protecting our natural resources. However, we must not become complacent. Moving towards the goal of sustainable development requires continuous innovation, perseverance, and a collective determination. Otherwise, we will be moving away from the goal. It is not an easy path, but it's the only one leading to a world that thrives both environmentally and socially. 7 years are not much time, and we won't achieve all goals by 2030, but we must move to them as close as possible. Let us seize this opportunity to forge a sustainable future together. Let us form the world for our children. Let us create a world where sustainability is not just a dream, but reality. The Swiss Confederation gives the floor back to the President.
Thank you. The United Arab Emirates.
Your Highest Excellency, Secretary General, Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly, most distinguished Executive Board and MUN directors, most honorable student officers, fellow delegates, hardworking staff, lovely guests, all in all, dear House. When we came together in 2015 to decide on the 17 goals for sustainable development, we knew that reaching those goals would be difficult, but we would not have known and never thought that it would be this hard. Now, a pandemic and a war of aggression later, we all have realized that reaching just half of these goals is a lot harder than we once thought. We are all well aware that many countries are already suffering from the consequences of the decisions all of us have made in the past, not knowing what effects they would have had on the future we now live in. But no matter how hard reaching any of these 17 goals might be, we must persevere in order to leave our children a planet that is capable of supporting our last greatest gift, life. With all that being said, we wish all of you fruitful debates and a immunolicious week. We yield the floor back to the President of the General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Your Highest Excellency, the Secretary General, Your Excellency, the President of the General Assembly, most honorable student officers and Executive Board, fellow delegates, lovely guests, dear House. Times are difficult. It is a time of upheaval. Many things out of our control change at a very fast pace. We are walking towards a dead end with our eyes wide open. They say modern problems require modern solutions. But many people tend to oversimplify the problems of our current world, and not everybody and every country has the strength to acquire and efficiently utilize the possible solutions, which is why we have to take one step after the other. Humans in general and the resources we have are very limited right now. We have to be very careful as to which step we should take. Our current approach to face one of the many problems is sustainable development. We as humans strive towards new and exciting things and often forget the bitter consequences this behavior brings for others. This results in overconsumption on a global scale which in return accelerates climate change and therefore crisis around the world. We are in dire need of positive change. We as humanity need those steps to last and not to perish. We don't take our responsibility lightly and will do our very best to work towards a better future together with our allies to combat those dreadful circumstances. We as a global community should stand as one, should support each other and strive towards a better tomorrow. For this, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland hopes for fruitful debates. The floor is yielded back to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you. And lastly, the United States of America.
Thank you. Your Highest Excellency, the Secretaries General, Your Excellency, the President of the General Assembly, most distinguished Executive Board, most honorable student officer and executive team, fellow delegates, distinguished guests. The United Nations Organization is an institution that has stood for one of the most important achievements of the international community after World War II, cooperation and peace. Terrorists, militias, and even entire nations do not respect these values and seek to use violence and fear to oppress civilians, destroy democracy, and endanger freedom. We, the United Nations, have gathered here today to bring food to the hungry, security to the fearful, and peace to the international community. We made a promise to the world on September 25, 2015, to use all our powers to move towards the goal of a just and fair world, free from fear and inequality. The United States of America has always been home to the world's most advanced and diverse economy and society. We want to export sustainable solutions to the world and promote equality around the globe. The United States of America looks forward to fruitful debates, and God bless America. Thank you. The United States of America now gives the floor back to the Excellency, the President of the General Assembly.
First of all, thank you very much for all your encouraging speeches. All of us once again apologize for previous difficulties, but just like Leonard, our TMS school choir has also made it to our location, and I'm really sure that everybody here is really happy to listen to their act. So we will now ask everybody to stay seated while we arrange everything for them and then continue with our presentation. Thank you so much.